Well, Liza, I'm so excited to talk to you today about sales and leaderships and your journey. But the first question I'm going to hit you with is how does someone get 17,000 plus followers on LinkedIn and 8,000 on Instagram? Like, how long did that take and how did you get there?
Actually, funny enough, I started on Facebook.
Really?
Yep, I started on Facebook and I kind of got into my creator journey over there. We got 22,000 over there right now. Woohoo. Um, but then when I started on the phones at my old job. I was at Callcore Media. And when I got promoted into management, my manager there said, create a LinkedIn. You're going to need a LinkedIn. I was like, okay, I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about what I was getting myself into. But LinkedIn has definitely changed the trajectory of my life. And I've just been posting there, consistently. I can't say every day, but at least every week and, multiple times a week. And it's just about building the relationships, building if somebody messages you, at least a little bit of a human conversation. I definitely did not do it using AI posts and a whole bunch of AI slop. I was just a real human connecting with other real humans.
That's amazing. And so you started your career as a phone on the agents. How did that happen?
Yeah. So funny enough, I was in restaurant management. And if you've ever worked in a restaurant, you know that that is not for the weak. It can get a little bit hectic. And I was at a point where I was opening the store by myself. I was there at 4 a.m. and normally I was working 12, 13-hour shifts, 6 days a week. And I just was like, this is not for me anymore. So I found a job at Callcore and I was working on the phones there. I was doing that for about a year or so, selling, well, not selling, but pitching Medicare, final expense plans, stuff like that. And I kind of worked my way up from there, but it was just kind of something that came along and wasn't in the restaurant space. I never knew, I would go on to make a career out of it at all.
Was it inbound or outbound, your first job?
Um, Mostly outbound. So we did have
Wow.
like a few inbound calls coming in, and when you do get one, you're like, oh, thank God. But at like 95% of it was all outbound. Yeah, that wasn't for the week either.
How much training did they give you? Or was it just like, here's a script, get on the phone, start dialing?
Well, actually, they did provide 2-week training. But me,
Okay.
myself, I'm more like, I need to do this now, hands on. So I was on the phones by the second day. And actually, by like my first day on the phones, I was at the top of the campaign. So they kind of just let me be from there and, let me do my thing as soon as I hopped on there. It wasn't too hard of a campaign, so I didn't, need that much training. It was more on like the softwares that I needed the training on rather than like the scripting and stuff. But I probably had about 2 days.
So I'm much older than you, but my first phone job was Mutual of Omaha selling life and health in a we call it a boiler room back then. And they just gave you like a piece of paper and said, hey, start dialing. And you dial, try to get
Yeah,
someone on the phone, hang up. You finally get someone on the phone and then you'd panic. You'd have that.
like
But after
relief,
a while,
but at the same time, it's scary.
yeah, finally someone to talk to you, and then all of a sudden the marbles get in your mouth, and you have to like go, okay, why am I calling and why am I doing that? And then I'd be so excited I would get an appointment, and then I'd have to go drive into their house and sit in the living room and try to sell a life insurance policy or an annuity, and then you know when they would say no and they would throw you out, and you try to rebuttal. They're like, nope, get out. But out, you're like, oh, what did I do wrong? And it took me a while. And I just think that door to door or face to face sales really helps you learn that it's a law of averages and you have to get past the gatekeeper. You have to do certain things. And if you don't go through that rejection, you don't realize how hard selling is. You think it's easy. But once you get that, and that you can speak to people and have conversations with people, it becomes easy.
Yeah.
And so when did you make that pivot? Like from sales to the lead gen world? That interests me.
So all right, going back to the phones, I got promoted
Right?
off of there within about a year. And I, at first, I was a like campaign manager. So I was just kind of
Yeah.
managing the agents on the campaign. And that's not necessarily sales, it's more like say this, do this, don't do that, don't send a dead call. We then flipped our model to brokering, and I stayed there, doing that with them for a while. And then I hopped over at this other company where I'm the chief growth officer. And in that time where I switched from being a campaign manager focused solely on the agents to actual sales, dealing with relationships, the whole kind of shebang, is when that flipped for me. And going into what we call brokering, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea whatsoever. My boss actually told me he didn't want me to do it and he wanted me to stay focused on there. And I told him I was going to do it anyway and he could deal with it. And I found myself very successful in it. And I think at the time, they were just getting started into the brokering space. And when I hopped in, it was just like a night and day difference. I'm very open. I can talk to people all day long. I love booking my calendar up with meetings all day and being in meetings and talking to the people. I like to be at the front end, driving the business. So for me, learning that was definitely a pivot from like a manager to into sales, into the whole front end process and into, the whole process itself. So it was definitely very interesting. And LinkedIn is where I started that too. I just started posting on LinkedIn and kind of learning from the people I talk to, learning from the people at my job, kind of just absorbing everything everybody taught me. And then, in the past few years, I've just used that to take off and excel.
So coming from a marketing background, building websites and doing paid search and SEO and affiliates and all the different call transfers, there's really no place to learn that. Who helped you learn the business? Or did you learn on your own?
No, there's not a place to learn that at all because we had a very small core team over there. And when we kind of shifted models, we were all learning together. There was no playbook. There was no, course that you could take on pay-per call or marketing or this. I mean, I'm sure there's some, but none of them are going to teach you everything you need to know. But again, just meeting with people and doing it over and over and over and, learning a little bit here, learning a little bit there from this person. So there was never really, one person that taught me everything. It was more like you started in the beginning, I've got a whole bunch of followers on all these platforms, and it was more learning from the people I was connected with.
How many people reach out to you a day? 22,000 here, 17,000 here, 8 over there. Like,
if I had to count, which is another reason why I'm, halfway insane. If I had to count how many people reach out to me a day, at least 300, probably more towards like 5 or 6 though.
I mean, that's amazing though, to build a platform like that, to build a brand like that. It's just a great story. And, when I started seeing your content, I said, and I see a lot of content, you are one of the most unique individuals because you have the farm animals and the things that go together. And it's a unique idea. And I wish more people would think that way. A lot of people, it's just the same old standard. I'm going to put a post up and a photo and a video. What would you tell to someone today, who's just growing into the ranks and wants to become in the business world? What's the 3 things or 2 things that you've learned from, the different platforms that they'd have to do today to be successful?
So my biggest number 1 tip, and I'm sure everybody says this, but be yourself. And, I don't necessarily mean go online and post all of your thoughts because you might seem a little bit crazy, but use your uniqueness and bring that into what you're posting, right? So like you said, my farm animals, chickens have nothing to do with pay-per call, but if I'm sitting here with a chicken at my desk and I've got them in front of my laptop acting like they're working, it's probably going to catch your attention because you're going to be like, well, what the heck is a chicken doing at the laptop? Bring your own uniqueness into what you're selling, into what you're doing. Another thing would definitely be that consistency beats perfection. If I go back and look at what I was posting when I first started this, it's very cringy. I was, using Canva and not very good either, just kind of slapping some stuff together, but it still worked. It still got me business. It got me started. So be consistent, learn from what you're posting, learn from others too. Always kind of do your research. You can scroll all day, but if you call it research, it sounds better. So do your research, kind of see what's working for other people, and then don't copy them, but put your own spin on it, bring your own personality into it, and be consistent with it, and learn as you go.
What's your feeling? I know in the pay per call space, I'm actually going to Contact IO next week. There's going to be a lot of conversations around AI. Where do you see AI in your business?
So I'm a very, very big believer that AI definitely belongs in this space. I just think it belongs on the back end of this space. So reporting, metrics, the jobs that you have humans doing that are taking hours, AI can do that in minutes. AI can run a report, make a dashboard, find out who's dropping calls, who's selling the most calls, who's got the best sales conversions, and it can do that in seconds. So I think it belongs on the back end, to help you optimize your business, to help you not need your employees to be so hands-on with the tedious tasks. I definitely don't think it belongs in the front end. I don't think it should be driving your sales. I don't necessarily think it should be interacting with your customers. But I do think it should be on the back end, optimizing, helping your team, run the business the best they can. But I do still think in the front end, as far as bringing in the business, talking to the customers, that should always remain human.
So in the call transfer business that you're in, or the lead gen business, what's the next step? Where do you see that industry going? Does it continue to grow? Does it get more fragmented, more consolidation? Like, where do you see, lead gen world going in the next couple of years?
Well, lead gen's a funny space. I've only been in it for about 6 years, but it's kind of a repetitive thing. So there will be a hot vertical, back
Yes.
a while ago it was Medicare, final expense, and then it was SSDI, ACA. And now we're kind of pivoting to like the home services stuff. And what kind of happens is that vertical will be very hot, and then it will get oversaturated, and everybody in the market will try to target the same people, right? So like if you're talking about Medicare final expense, there's only so many people in the United States that are on that. So when people are targeting the same people over and over, it gets oversaturated quickly. So I don't think lead generation is going anywhere. It is, the baseline of sales in America, but I think that the verticals that it focuses on are changing. Right now, like I said, I'm seeing a very uptick in the home services side of things. And those guys kind of getting their feet wet in the lead gen space, instead of just having their businesses running, they're buying inbound calls and buying leads from the market. And that's a little bit newer because they weren't necessarily doing that as much 6 years ago when I hopped in. It was more all insurance and maybe some debt. So I don't think it's going anywhere. I do think it's going to get stricter. A lot of the laws, we were kind of faced with the one-to-one consent law. That didn't end up going through, but a lot of people do still follow it. So I think it's going to get stricter. Obviously, they're kind of cracking down the laws on some states. I know California's got some major laws going on, Colorado. But the main thing is different verticals, and a lot of it is shifting towards inbound. So rather than, lead lists and dialing out and all of that, it's more putting up ads and having the people call you. So that's the main thing that I've seen a big shift in, is it's more inbound traffic and a lot less outbound.
It's funny, you're the second person who I talked to today about a Medicare shift to home services. And so it is definitely something that's going on. When you look at yourself now from where you were 6 or 7 years ago, and now that you're a leader, what do you find the biggest challenge with people, that you're bringing into the business, and how to manage people? Like, what's your biggest challenge that you have managing people?
That's a good question. So I think it's a mindset thing. And getting somebody to believe that what you did is possible, right? And that's not even only managing people, but like friendships and stuff like that. But as far as managing people, bringing them into the company and saying, yeah, no, I did this. It's like not that they don't believe you at first, but like they need to see it for themselves. And sometimes, unless you get a very driven individual, it does require a lot of hand holding. So being able to kind of see, okay, this is an individual who's going to make it in the space. This is an individual who's going to excel. This is somebody who is going to understand what I'm telling them the first, 5 times. And I think the biggest thing is a lot of people are just not cut out for this space. They're not. It can get very hectic. There's a lot of moving parts. And unless you have a little bit of OCD or something going on, it's just not a space that everybody can survive in. So my biggest challenge is getting them to kind of grasp the reality of how possible it is to make as much money as lead generation can make. And then, when you bring somebody in a company, the loyalty isn't always there like you would be to that company. So a lot of times, if it's not something that is immediately, popping off, we'll say, then they might lose hope, or they might, not put all of their effort into it because maybe their first campaign or two didn't go so well. Okay, well, try 100 more. Like, I promise you something's going to stick. But not everyone is willing to put that effort in.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge I find. When I try to mentor or train a lot of people, they want instant gratification. They don't understand the amount of work and hard work you have to put in, especially in a lead gen space. Like, you may have to dial 50 or 60 people to get one appointment and then get rejected 10 times to get one sale. They don't understand that because they see someone successful like you and they think, oh, look, that she's just made a dial and made a sale. They didn't see the prep work that goes into it. And so they come on board and they think, oh, I'm going to make all this money and I'm just going to make some phone calls. But you have to have mathematical skills. You have to have conversational skills. I mean, there's so many different factors when you're selling marketing services to people, and the follow-up and the things that go into being detailed orientated. So, it's amazing that, of so many sides, like, people get so motivated. Oh, it's uncapped commission and I can make all this money, but they don't want to put the work in.
Yes.
Like, you got to put the work in to do that. So one of the things that I find just talking to you right now is the energy level. Where did that energy level come from? Were you a hyperactive kid? Were you always had this much energy? Do you ever slow down?
I can't tell you a time that I've moved in slow motion my entire life. I live in Florida, but I am from New York. And I was actually just having the same conversation that a lot of people from New York, they don't have sit still in their blood. So, I mean, I wake up and, I'm a mom, I have a farm, I have a full-time job, I run 3 businesses on the side. So I don't sit still. I don't know how to sit still. And I've kind of been like that, like I said, most of my life. I wake up and I'm immediately outside feeding my animals, and then I'm back in here with my daughter, and then boom, it's time to go to work. And that's one of the things that's definitely got me far is, the high energy, because I'm able to, again, make the relationships, and I'm not sitting in a meeting like, oh, yep. Okay. And it's a little bit more fun that way. But I'm sure the 3 cups of coffee I have every morning definitely help.
How do you maintain, rejection? How do you overcome that objection and stay positive?
Rejection never bothered me. And honestly, when I was on the phone, it was a little bit different, but all in all, like I would set a goal for myself, right? Like I would take, when I was on the phone, like 300 to 400 calls a day. Regardless of what happened in those 300 to 400 calls, as long as I was coming out with 20 sales every day, I was fine, right? So you could tell me, we won't say what some of the stuff people told me, but you could tell me anything. And like, I was killing you with kindness every phone call. Like, you could send me all the death threats you wanted. And I'd be like, okay, well, Barbara, you have yourself a great day and God bless. And then I'd hang up and on to the next, right? Because like, as long as you have the mentality of like, that's just part of the job, it gets easier. And when I used to do like manager introductions for agents, I would tell them that you have to go into this space with a mindset of you are going to get rejected. That's part of the job. That's why you're here. And if the rejections weren't part of the job and we knew who was going to sell, we would just go ahead and call them ourselves, right? We wouldn't have this giant campaign. So like you have to go into it knowing it's just part of it. And whether they sell or not, like there's a next call where that came from. And if they don't sell, guess what? There's 500 more dials in the dialer and one of them are going to, right? You just got to get to them.
I mean, your attitude is contagious, and that's why you're successful. I've teach so many different classes where I teach people law of averages. You're going to make 10 phone calls. 2 are going to hang up on you. 2 are going to curse you out. That leaves 6. You sell 3 of them. You're the rock star. You're close to 33%. You're the best in the business.
Yep.
But some of them get so rattled, you know, when someone gives them the FU, never call back, like they can't overcome that rejection. And I think that has a lot to do with the way they've been brought up in a trophy world where, look, not everybody gets the trophy in business. The people who do the hard work and dedication and do it are the ones that come out with it, right?
Exactly.
So I think that's the hardest part. Give me your last point of 5 years from now, where you're going to be.
Well, listen, I would love to give you my 5 years from now where I'm going to be. But if you told me 5 years ago I would be here, I would probably never believe you. In 5 years from now, I would like to, you know, I'm actually closing on a house next Friday, 1 week from today. And it's going to be my new house for my farm. We got about 8 acres coming. So in 5 years, I'd love to have that paid off. I'd love to have, you know, my farm expanded. I would love to, you know, not have to, I would love to not have to go to work every day. Right. But that's kind of like in my brain now. However, 5 years from now, I hope I'm a millionaire and, you know, I hope I never have to log into this computer again, right?
I think knowing you're going to be working twice as hard 5 years from now for the second farm with 25 acres. I can talk to you all day long. I would ask where people can find you. For the ones who haven't, where do they find you? And so they're not, you know, annoying you with the 300 messages a day. But if anybody's reaching out to do business with you or wants to find you, where do they find you?
To do business with me, LinkedIn is always the best. LinkedIn, I at least look at all of my messages. Facebook, Instagram, it might take a few weeks. LinkedIn, I do filter all of my messages personally. I don't have anybody else that's on my account. My LinkedIn is under Liza Stancliff. You can follow me there, add me there, and send me a message.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And let's stay in touch and we will talk soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.